I got goosebumps. Hey nerds, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing another episode of Reading Rouge, the series on my channel where I do a book review while simultaneously putting on makeup. And for this episode, we're going to be talking about the Final Girl support group. But before we get into that, I just want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Now let's get into this. Alright, so this Reading Rouge is a little bit overdue because I finished this book back in October. I'm going to read the synopsis of the book on the book cover, so come on, sit down. In horror movies, the final girl is the one who's left standing when the credits roll. The one who fought back, defeated the killer, and avenged her friends. The one who emerges bloodied but victorious. But after the sirens fade and the audience moves on, what happens to her? Lynette Tarkington is a real-life final girl who survived a massacre 22 years ago, and it has to find every day of her life since. And she's not alone. For more than a decade, she's been meeting with 5 other actual final girls and their therapists in a support group for those who have survived the unthinkable, putting their lives back together piece by piece. That is, until one of the women misses the meeting and Lynette's worst fears are realized. Someone knows about the group and is determined to take their lives apart again, piece by piece. But the thing about these final girls is that they have each other now, and no matter how bad the odds, how dark the night, how sharp the knife, they will never ever give up. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say the author's name. Grady Hendrix. So yeah, that is the gist of this book, and me being a horror fan, if I have like at least one new viewer, hi, if you don't know me, just know that I love to read and I love horror movies. So imagine my excitement when I first picked up this book. This book is very interesting and it has become one of my favorites. This is a great take on the final girl trope and element itself, and then life after that. So I asked y'all if y'all wanted me to go through the entire plot or just talk about the characters and like my thoughts about the book, and most of you chose the entire plot. So get comfy, we're gonna be here for a while, okay? So before I get into the plot, I want to talk about the characters. Now, this is one of many cool, interesting things about this book. So each character in this book, or each character in the Final Girl support group, is based off of a Final Girl in an actual horror movie. I just love that detail. So let's go down a list of our characters here. So we have Lynette, who is our main character, our main final girl, and her character is based off of the final girl in Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now, I've never seen it. I know I just called myself a horror buff. Let me change that to horror fan. I've never seen Silent Night, Deadly Night. Don't come for me. She is also our narrator of this story, and not a very reliable one at that, and you'll find out why. Her paranoia and mental issues can make her mental thoughts a very erratic place to be. I mean, especially enduring years of stuff of what she went through. The truth may seem further away from what it used to be. Next, we have Adrienne. She is in the Final Girl group as well. Black woman, go back woman. And her character is based off of a Final Girl in Friday the 13th. I don't know which one because there's so many. So her experience is based off of Friday the 13th, because you know she was at a summer camp where everyone was getting got, so yeah. And I like to think of her as the glue of the group. She's the one that has her shit together pretty much. She's kind of the leader. Then we have Julia, who is also in the Final Girl group, and she's basically Sydney from Scream, but in a wheelchair. Like, these references are so on the nose. Her attacker is called the Ghost Killer. So, yeah, that's how I knew right away. She's like this conspiracy theorist, know-it-all combo. Then we have Danny, whose character is based off of Laurie Strode in Halloween. One of her defining traits is that she is a lesbian. Because diversity and inclusivity. Just like Adrian's is that, you know, she's black and she's the only one that has her together. And then we have Marilyn, and she is this prissy, rich, stuck-up snob who thinks she's too good. You ain't too good, Marilyn. And her character is based off of old girl from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the OG one, the one that came out in the 70s, that one. And the last girl in the group is Heather. Can you guess what her character is based off of? They didn't even change her name. Her name is Heather, and if you haven't guessed it, her character is based off of Heather Langenkamp's character in A Nightmare on Elm Street. And now her scenario and her attacker is called the Dream King, and it's just like, okay, how does that translate into real life? Like I read this whole book without figuring out how did her experience have like a real life equivalent? Because all the rest of these are pretty, you know, they could work in real life as well as they can in fiction, especially movies, but how did a dream demon, what's the equivalent? I didn't figure it out. Heather is the one who has not coped well, I guess, and she's a drug addict, so yeah. And then we have Dr. Carol Elliott. She is the women's therapist that runs the group therapy for all the final girls. That's all you need to know. That's all the characters that really matter, I guess, in my opinion. But yeah, because there's quite a few that pop in and out, but these are like the main recurring ones, okay? So let's get into this plot. Now, another detail I really like about this book is like in between chapters, there are these special pages, and they're excerpts from newsletters or message boards, interviews, police paperwork. Like it's really interesting because they each kind of give you a precursor to what's coming next in the next chapter, or like it kind of touches on what happened in the previous chapter. It's really cool. But this book opens up with a bunch of incels talking mad shit about final girls on a subreddit. This kind of reminds me of when I was reading The Block Party, and like every so often we would see like the message board for Alton Road. That's what it reminded me of. So chapter 1, I'm gonna go through chapter 1 through 6. Okay, so chapter 1, we like get all the intros to everybody, Lynette included because she is our narrator, and she finds out there's been a murder at a camp, 6 counselors with 1 sole survivor, and she tells us the age-old story of the final girl that us horror fans love and know all too well. I'm gonna read how she describes it, okay? New money, rich money, straight from the mid-money, fresh money, young money, push against the tide. Hey, we ride, we ride. You're watching a horror movie and the silent killer knocks off the stoner, the slut, the geek, the jock, and the deputy, and now he's chasing the virgin babysitter through the woods. She's the one who said they shouldn't party at this deserted summer camp, break into this abandoned lunatic asylum, skinny dip in the isolated lake, especially since it's Halloween or Thanksgiving or Arbor Day or whatever the anniversary is of those unsolved murders from way back. The killer's got a chainsaw, boat hook, butcher's knife, and the girl's got zip. No upper body strength, no mass, no shotgun. All she's got is good cardio and an all-American face. Yet somehow she kills the killer, then stares numbly off into the middle distance or collapses into the arms of the arriving police. Or runs crying to her boyfriend, makes one last quip, lights one last cigarette, asks a final haunted question, gets taken off in an ambulance, screaming and screaming like she's never going to stop. Ever wonder what happens to those final girls? After the cops eliminate them as suspects, after the press releases their brace-faced, pizza-cheeked, bad hair day class photos that inevitably sorry, that was funny, that inevitably get included on the cover of a true crime book, after the candlelight vigils in the moment of silence, after someone plants the memorial shrub. I know what happens to those girls. After the movie deals get signed, after the film franchise fails, after you realize that while everyone else was filling out college applications, you were locked in a residential treatment program, pretending you weren't scared of the dark. After the talk show circuit, after your third therapist just accepts that he's your Zoloft dispensing machine and you won't be making any breakthroughs on his watch, after you realize that the only interesting thing that'll ever happen to you happened when you were 16, after you stop going outside, after you start browsing locksmiths the way other women browse the windows at Tiffany's, after you left town because you couldn't deal with the why not you looks from the parents of all your dead friends, after you've lost everything, been through the fire, started knowing your stalkers by their first names, after all that happens, you wind up where I'm going today, in a church basement in Burbank, seated with your back to the wall, trying to hold the pieces of your life together. We're an endangered species, for which I'm grateful. There are only 6 of us still around. It used to make me sad there weren't more of us out there, but we were creatures of the 80s and the world has moved on. They used to dust off the clip packages for our anniversaries or the occasional franchise reboot, but these days it's all oil pills, WikiLeaks, and the Tea Party and the Taliban. The 6 of us belong to another era. We're media invisible. We might as well not even exist. So she gave y'all a rundown of basically what it's like to be in their shoes as final girls. And I couldn't have described it better myself. And then we see an excerpt of the doctor's group therapy notes here. She thinks that the group has become ineffective because most of the women have forgotten the objective. So she's considering ending the sessions altogether. So the next day, Lynette goes to group and literally everybody is arguing. Danny is one of the first in group to become a final girl, and she says, like, listen, after this session, this is it, I'm done, I'm not doing this no more. Everyone's upset about this, but Lynette takes it the hardest because this is the only consistent thing that they each have in their life. And she knows that if Danny leaves, eventually everyone else will follow suit. I am so chocolate and I love that. And me personally, I feel like Lynette was being selfish right here because what you talking about? She was like, what about us? What about everything we've been through? That's what she was giving. Like, it's not all about you. She was trying to make it seem like it was a collective, what about us? But it was really her saying, what about me? And at this point, Danny just wants to move on and live her life. And she's valid in wanting that. And I'm just like, Lynette, you're the main character. I'm supposed to like you. You're not doing too well right now. So the women start arguing some more. And then here comes Marilyn with bad news. She delivers the bad news that Adrian is dead. Now, my notes say read page 20. I'm gonna read page 20. I think this is the first Read in Rouge where I've read this much out of the book. I guess this was important. So I'm gonna read page 20 like my notes told me to. Oh, this is one of those special pages. I'm gonna just take a picture of this and just put it up. I'm not gonna read all of this, okay? Because I'm pretty sure I have some note about every special page. I'm gonna just put it on the screen so y'all can read it yourself. So next chapter, after everybody finds out this news that Adrian is dead, they are hurrying home with the quickness. They're like, oh shit, it's happening again. Like, we thought we was gonna catch a break, it's happening again. And Lynette's mind is racing as she's keeping her head on a swivel and she's going through her mental survival checklist. Like, it is OCD on another level. And something in this chapter jumped out at me. I have this section labeled, these notes are all over the place. Usually I have my notes together, but this whole section just says chapter 1 through 6. I'm gonna just talk. I'm not gonna worry about chapters. I'm gonna just talk. But something here jumped out at me. So on page 24 it says, men don't have to pay attention the way we do. Men die because they make mistakes. Women, we die because we're female. When I tell y'all I had the nastiest on my face, cause it's, ooh, it hit, cause it's true. Like, that is a fourth wall break that shook me to my core. And it's happened quite a few times, but that line right there, I got goosebumps. Yes, like I said before, Adrian's incident is a indirect reference to Friday the 13th. And how the whole thing goes is, you know, a former camp cook killed counselors because his son drowned while a couple of them were having sex. And of course the weapon of choice is a machete. Turns out dude never had a kid there. The killer, he was just a creep. So yeah. And then I see in my notes, I love looking back at my notes after so long. This says, page 30 is important in all caps. So this goes over Adrian's kind of life after she survived that incident. So she decided to profit off of her trauma, which she was the only one who did that. She decided to greenlight a franchise being made about the sprees that happened at the camp. I forgot the camp's name. It's leaving me as I speak, but it'll probably come up again. So, like I said, Adrian was the only black woman in a group, right? And that franchise was meant to, like, tell the story of what she experienced. You wanna know what happened? They cast a white girl to play Adrian and to act out what she went through. Oh, Ooh, y'all, when I read that part, I was heated, livid, and other adjectives. Other synonyms. I'm so glad that the author included this commentary. Black people, actors or not, we suffer from erasure in the film industry. We suffer from erasure pretty much everywhere. And it's that same harmful ass shit where it's like, if we're not whitewashed, then we're not marketable. You mean to tell me a black woman survived a highly traumatizing event in her life, and you cast a white woman to play her? Let me keep going, because I ain't got all day to go get on my soapbox, y'all. So Adrienne, guess what she do? She ended up going to the studio and taking them for everything they motherfucking had, as she should. Cause what are you doing? That's weird. That's weird ass behavior. Like, why are you doing this? And she got the rights to the entire franchise. Bloop. That's what I mean when she profited off her trauma. Okay, she didn't greenlight. Let me correct myself. She did not greenlight the franchise being made. It was made without her permission, and then when she found out what was going on with it, she sued the studio, got the rights to the movies. So yeah. We also find out that Adrienne used the proceeds from the movie to start a program for women who went through the same thing that she did. So she bought the camp, the very camp where she suffered that traumatic experience, and turned it into a retreat for women who went through the same thing that she did. That is literally her taking lemons and making lemonade. I said, Adrienne, you're my hero. So after Lynette makes it home, Julia comes over to her house, and Julia tells her that someone in group is writing a book. They know all our business, and we need to figure out who is doing this. And they know everything about Adrienne's attacker and the nephew that did the recent killings at the camp. Then, out of nowhere, Lynette's house gets lit the f*** up. Yeah, so Lynette escapes and she leaves Julia behind in fear. Remind y'all, Julia is in a wheelchair. Julia is in a wheelchair, mama. So after this, Lynette enacts her one of many escape plans because she just knew that something like this was gonna happen. She doesn't live. Lynette lives in fear every day, and she has literally a plan A through Z for every scenario. So she is going to the parking garage in her apartment complex to get to her getaway car, and she finds that it's been disabled. So someone knows about her plan B. And she's assuming this is the same person who lit her apartment up just a few seconds ago. So she's panicking now, and she's calling Dr. Carroll for some help. So yeah, Lynette calls Dr. Carroll. She's like, listen, I'm in danger. And Dr. Carroll's like, you know what? You can come stay at my house tonight, you know, so you can feel safe. And then so when Dr. Carroll picks up Lynette, she gets a call from the cops that the halfway house that Heather lives in, it was set on fire. And Heather is nowhere to be found. She's missing. Now Lynette is panicking even more because now she's realizing that this could be anybody. Like, we don't know who's coming after everybody, but it could be literally anyone. It could be her attacker, it could be one of the other girls' attackers, we don't know. Initially she thinks it's all their attackers coming together to like off them once and for all, and then she starts conspiring, like what if it's like a crazy fan, what if it's a stalker, what if it's a hater, you know? So next chapter, and Dr. Carroll takes Lynette to her house where her two sons live. She has two boys. She has Sky, who is 26, still living with his mama, and the other one, what's the other son's name? I don't know. Pax, he's like 7 or 8 or something. He young. And not to mention, like, Lynette is not a people's person, and she sure as hell ain't good with kids. She's kind of like a cold, standoffish type of person, because, you know, people have never really been her thing. She doesn't have that gene where she's just like very good with interacting with people, because, you know, she's paranoid. Yeah, I don't blame her for that, but she was being a little weird. And Dr. Carroll's kids are being hella disrespectful towards Lynette. Like, they ain't got no couth. They asked to see her scars because they know who she is. They're like, oh, you're one of the final girls. Like, you know, are the scars real? Like, let me see your scars. And she has scars like all over her chest and underneath her breasts and stuff. After getting into it, this grown-ass woman gets into it with a 7-year-old. Dr. Carroll's like, okay, listen, you either respect my house or you leave. Like, we're not gonna do this. Like, I know you're on edge, but you need to respect the rules of my house, okay? So Lynette backs off. She's like, fine, you got it. You right. This your house. I'm gonna respect your house. And then Dr. Carroll gets another call from another cop saying that Danny has been taken into custody for shooting a police officer. So Lynette keeps freaking out. Like, she keeps spiraling and she don't feel safe. So she's planning to escape from Dr. Carroll's house. She's like, I can't do this, y'all. I can't do this no more. So Lynette recruits Dr. Carroll's older son, Sky, to help her get out and take her back home. All right, next chapter, and Sky and Lynette are in the car now. This says read bottom of page 88, top of 89. And there's this repeated mantra that Lynette was once taught from a wise person, and it says, 1 is none, 2 is 1. And that's referring to, you know, allies, backup plans. Like, you know, if you have only one backup plan, you really don't have one. And then if you have 2, then you really have 1. Kind of get it? You get it? Okay. So Sky and Lynette both sneak back into her apartment that is now a literal crime scene. And it's being watched by tons of news outlets and stuff. And they came back to Lynette's apartment because she needs to retrieve this CPU drive, you know, in her computer and shit. Oh, and this is where it gets messy. This says read middle of page 95. Now this I have to read. Because this next part, you need context. Middle of page 95, here we go. Some cop will come back at some point, and if this is sitting there with its hard drive missing, even the geniuses in the Burbank PD will realize I came back to get it because it's important. And I don't want anyone looking for my hard drive because it's got my book on it. Yes. You remember when Julia came over to Lynette's apartment talking about someone's writing a book, they're gonna expose us? It was Lynette's ass the whole time. And I was reading, I was like, Lynette, you got some explaining to do because you didn't tell us, the readers, that you were right. Like, what? How do I trust you now as the main character? How do I trust you? And I didn't realize this sooner, but I think Lynette has a crush on Sky. And it's kind of weird because she's a weird one. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but she's kind of weird. And it's not weird because of the age gap. I think Lynette is somewhere between 40 and 50. It's weird because that's your therapist's son. And there's also like this kind of like weird sexual romantic tension between them. And I'm just like, I don't want this to happen. They're both very weird people. But anyway, they leave and she asks Sky to drop her off somewhere in the Hollywood Hills and they bid each other goodbye. We find out that Lynette has everyone's secrets on this drive and I'm like, girl, you are trifling as hell. You're the man who wants to talk about we need to stick together, we're sisters, but you're writing a book exposing everybody's business? Bitch. And then this is when I realized, and when I find out that the book that she's writing is a romance novel. She writes under a pseudonym. It's giving Wattpad. A while back, one of the reporters that used to hang around the girls found out about her romance novels and found out that it was her under the pseudonym. And he was like, we should write a book together, but about what's going on in group. At first, Lynette agreed, but then she wrote it to herself and planned to backdoor Russell, you know, just kind of leave him out of the equation. At this point, I'm confused. I'm like, okay, so is the book about group on the drive or your secret romance novel is on the drive or both? Because the book went back and forth between the two. So I'm just like, is it about group or is it about a secret romance novel? Like, what's on a drive? And I'm like, is she the one writing a book about group? Because Julia found out and told the rest of the group, but they didn't know who else was. So I'm thinking at this point, Julia is doing it, but I don't know. And then I came to the conclusion that it was Lynette, and I found out that the guilt kept her from publishing it. So yes, the book about group is on the drive, not the romance book. I'm just going through my process in my mind. So she puts together that after the shootout, someone like from the authorities must have gotten hold of the book. And that's how Julia found out that the book existed. And Lynette's thinking it's the reporter Russell because he's slimy. This neighborhood in the hills that she was dropped off in, this is where Marilyn lives because Marilyn is rich hunty. Now Marilyn did cash in on her trauma. She agreed initially for her trauma to be made into a film franchise. That's why she got all that money. And she took every chance she got to go on talk shows and all that stuff. She cashed in her trauma. She made freaking pennies into stacks, baby. So she sneaks into Marilyn's house and she's having this huge ass party, but Lynette gets caught by the security. And then Marilyn finds out that she snuck onto the premises. She was like, girl, can you just give me like a day? Like, let me, can we chill? We can talk about it in the morning. She was like, let me have my party and then we can talk in the morning, whatever you want. So Lynette is taken to the guest house and guess who's there chilling like a villain? Heather. Like nothing's wrong. She's just like, oh, what's up, boo? Like, what you doing here? And Heather is not taking any of this shit serious, y'all. She don't got enough urgency. She just kind of like laying back like, all right. So someone's coming to get us, so what? The only reason why Heather is chill as is because she thinks that she is staying in Marilyn's fortress of a mansion, so she can't be touched. And Lynette's trying to tell her, like, it don't matter. Like, they always find a way of getting to us. I need you to have a little bit more urgency, Bookie. And she's like, girl, whatever, leave me alone. And so Lynette finds out through the news that she's a prime suspect. So the next morning, Lynette, Marilyn, and Heather make a plan to go see Danny's wife. She is in hospice. Danny's wife has cancer. And before agreeing to this, Marilyn was very dismissive and, you know, hard. You know, she was just being rude as hell, not wanting to deal with any of this. That was until Lynette got through to her. So the girls go visit Danny's wife. Her name is Michelle. And they hatch a plan to break her out of the hospice place. Michelle's dying wish is to die on the ranch that her and Danny acquired together. And so that's exactly what they are going to do. Because Danny's still in jail for shooting at cops. So she's still in custody. And it is tearing her up inside because she can't be there with her wife in her final moments. So they're going to try to carry out that promise for Danny. Because, you know, she behind bars. Like, it's a whole sequence, y'all. They fight through security and everything. Like, it was like an action movie. So as they're trying to take Michelle home, she ran out of time and they realize that they're not going to make it to the ranch, so they just decide to go to a park instead. And Michelle passes peacefully without Danny by her side. And now Lynette, Marilyn, and Heather are arguing about what to do with her body because they just outside in broad daylight with a dead body. Heather comes back with this old man to sit with Michelle until her ride gets there, which is the ambulance. They called the ambulance to come pick up the body. And out of nowhere, all these cops pop up at the park. And Heather reveals that she sold Lynette out. Because at that point in time, the police were looking for all of them. Because they wanted to question them and shit. Heather sold Lynette out. Oh, I was so mad at this bitch. So, oh my God. So, Lynette is caught in the park and she is detained. She's arrested, whatever you want to say. I would have been hot as grits, boy, if that was me. Me and Heather would have been fighting the next time I saw her. And then of course Heather disappears after that. She ain't nowhere to be found. So it's the next chapter and Lynette is being interrogated. They're asking her like some really outlandish shit, like if she slept with her attacker and all that stuff. And I'm just like, but what does this have to do with anything that's going on now? Like, Adrian is the one that got. And then Heather's halfway house blew up and then someone shot up my apartment. Why are you asking me if I slept with the person that tried to kill me? What is wrong with you? And then Top Dog comes in and his name is Garrett. Now him and Lynette have a history. They used to date. And this is how she found out that she was a suspect. She saw Garrett on the news, you know, telling everybody. Yep, so he comes in because the cops aren't getting nothing out of her. And so he starts antagonizing. Interrogating, he's antagonizing. He keeps pushing on her and then he pulling out evidence until finally Lynette snaps. She has had enough. So we find out that possibly Lynette did sleep with her attacker and maybe the brother too, because the attacker had a brother, and apparently she convinced them to kill her family and her boyfriend. And it's just like, this is where I knew Lynette wasn't a reliable narrator, because where did all this come from? Why are you confessing all of a sudden? Why did you lie to us? So after lashing out and stuff, they throw Lynette in like this plexiglass cell. think of the one from You. That's what I imagine when they threw her in there. And we finally get Lynette's backstory. Up until this point, we've heard everybody else's backstory of what they went through, and we finally get Lynette's. So like I said, her incident was based off of Silent Night, Deadly Night. So there was this person called the Santa Claus Killer, and his actual name was Ricky. He unalived her entire family and the boyfriend, and he tried to unalive Lynette by impaling her on a deer head. Like, just stuck her up there like a Christmas ornament. It was real messed up. And Garrett was the one who found her. He was a cop back in those days, like a regular schmegular cop before he was a detective, I guess. Yeah, Garrett rescued Lynette, and then after that they fell in love. So 2 years after her incident, Ricky's brother Billy found Lynette's foster parents and off them. And then, of course, the brother blamed Lynette for what happened to Ricky because, you know, he didn't make it after he unalived everybody that night. Then Garrett saves her again, and then they make love for the first time. But I want to say this. I want to preface. I want to let y'all know this. At this time, during this time, Lynette was 18 and Garrett was 41. Sir, she is barely legal. And apparently she was writing letters to her attacker like as a pen pal or some shit. And he got out and then did what she was asking in the letters. But we don't know what's in them yet. So these letters apparently that she was writing to Billy or Ricky or whatever, whoever, damn. She was exhibiting a lot of teenage angst, saying that she wishes her parents were dead. And then the pen pal took that seriously, so he did what she was talking about. But not once did she ask Ricky to kill them. And now she's telling us that, oh, I deserve everything that's happening to me because of what's in the letters. And I'm like, girl, I'm just like, what the did you write? I mean, this again is just proving that Lynette is not a solid or reliable narrator. Y'all, this is like my third time in life doing eyeliner. Let's see how it goes, because I don't think it's gonna go well. I can't talk when I'm doing this because it's not going to go right. That looks hideous. You know what? I'm going to stop touching it. I'm going to just leave it how it is because I don't want to fuck it up even more. So Dr. Carroll comes to visit her, and she tells Lynette that the whole group got hold of the book. Like, they know that she wrote that shit. And Dr. Carroll has a copy of the book too. Things are just going wrong. And she's telling Lynette how hurt she is by what she wrote about her. Like, girl, shut up. And then this is where Lynette comes to the conclusion that Dr. Carroll is the one behind all this. And she comes to this conclusion by simply the way that she reacted when she found out about the book, or how she was talking about it, and it seemed off to Lynette, I guess. So she's like, bitch, you did this. So they take her back, they put her in a cell, and you know, everyone's treating her like crap, ignoring her, and not gonna lie, she starts to lose her mind just a little bit. Well, a lot of it, but. So when one of the cops goes into the cell to like feed her lunch or whatever, he tries to suffocate her. Suffocate her. And I'm like, what the hell? And they just glaze over that like nothing happened. So the next chapter, Lynette finds out that she's gonna go back to her hometown to go to trial. Garrett is treating her like shit. He's being so rough and so callous. And it's like he has his own personal vendetta against her, but he really doesn't have a reason to. So they're driving and they're out in the middle of nowhere because, you know, Garrett is supposed to be transporting her back to her hometown for the trial. And this is where Lynette thinks she's gonna die because they're out in the middle of nowhere. It's just them two. She's like, okay, he's gonna try and kill me. But then we find out that Garrett is planning to set her free. He has his reasons mainly involving money, but solely because he believes that this whole framing Lynette situation does not add up. So Garrett isn't exactly the enemy, but he's not our ally either, but he's still willing to help Lynette out of this mess. So these two devise a plan to make it look like Lynette escaped and roughed Garrett up so they can begin the investigation to see who really is causing all this mayhem. So that's the next chapter. And you remember when I was talking about the camp massacre that happened that Lynette saw on TV and the one sole survivor? So it was a 16-year-old girl named Stephanie. And Lynette decides to go pay Stephanie a little visit. And this is before she decides to start the investigation. So Lynette is impersonating a therapist who works closely with Dr. Carroll. And she's doing this so she can get access to Stephanie and take her somewhere safe. But her disguise starts to rapidly fall apart when she keeps bickering with the parents about Stephanie's safety. And she literally tells these worried parents that her daughter's gonna die. I'm like, you're not sounding very professional right now. I don't think I like this lipstick. I don't think I do. I don't think I like that. Some things work, but not all things work. I don't think this is working for me. So Stephanie's dad calls her down, and then when she comes down, Stephanie immediately recognizes Lynette, but she doesn't let her parents know. She plays it off. And then this is where it starts to get messy. Dr. Carroll shows up at their front door. And I'm thinking, oh shit, she's gonna blow her cover. And that's exactly what happened. And at the end of the chapter, Lynette escapes with Stephanie, and she goes with her willingly. And then Lynette tells her that Dr. Carroll wants to kill them both and that she can protect Stephanie. Next chapter, and Lynette and Stephanie are on the lam. They run it. And then Stephanie gets a call from her mom, and she's panicking. And Lynette tries to talk to the parents for a little bit. That is until Dr. Carroll gets on the phone and goes, go bring the girl back. And so Lynette put all of them on speaker, and she's addressing all of them. And she tells them that if they sent out any alerts, call the popo, try to get the pursuit stopped in any way, she's gonna off Stephanie. And I'm like, why would you say that? I'm like, you were already a fugitive before you came up here. You are not doing yourselves any favor, baby. And she says that if they comply, Steph will call them every 5 hours to let them know that she's safe until Lynette brings her back home. And Lynette is trying desperately to get in contact with the other girls from the group, but none of them are answering. And if they do answer, they don't want to talk to her ass because they still mad about that book, baby. So she continues to go on this investigation. She's still trekking. And now the next part of her investigation is to meet up with this woman called Crazy Chrissy. Apparently, Crazy Chrissy was a part of the Final Girl support group. That is until she became a sellout, and she was like, basically, I don't know, she was just doing some weird shit. She started selling memorabilia from all of their traumatic experiences, so she got kicked out of group and shunned from the group, which honestly, yeah, because what are you doing? And Lynette is looking at Stephanie as her new little sister since her real one died in the massacre with Ricky and all that stuff. So when Chrissy doesn't carry out through the plan of meeting in a public place, Lynette decides to follow her back to her house. She gets there, she starts, you know, interrogating Chrissy. And this is when Lynette accuses Chrissy of being an inside man for one of the killers. She says it's because there's evidence that Garrett gave her that shows that Chrissy supports them and visits them in jail. And of course, Chrissy isn't giving anything up. She's being very annoying and patronizing. And then we find out just how truly unhinged Chrissy is because she takes Chrissy to the back of her property or whatever. This woman has an entire museum dedicated to all of the Final Girls attackers. She got memorabilia, like she got weapons that people were unalive with. She got clothing articles. She got all that stuff. She got news clippings, photos, all of that. And she's obsessed. And she's like, there's beauty in this. And Lynette knows that this is Chrissy just stalling because she's just not going to give up the answer right away, of course. I meant to say this. Stephanie's waiting in the car when Lynette's talking to Chrissy. She's waiting in the car. And each room in this museum is dedicated to a specific Final Girl. And then for some reason, like when they saw Heather's room, it really made Lynette sick to her stomach, but we don't find out what was in there. Like the author never tells us what was in Heather's room. And then we find out that Chrissy has been an inside man. She's been a liaison between Billy, Lynette's attacker, and one of his fans called Orchomenus. That's Greek for something. They say it in the book. Orchomenus. And then another bomb drops. Chrissy says that Dr. Carroll is actually Orchomenus. And I'm shocked at this point. I'm like, is this the truth? Has Lynette been right this whole time, or is Chrissy just with her? And it turns out Dr. Carroll knew about the letters this whole entire time. She knew about the letters. That means that this bitch fabricated sex between Lynette and Ricky. You remember how I said Lynette was writing to Ricky as a pen pal? She never wrote about like that. So Dr. Carroll went out of her way to make some forged ass letters to make Lynette look bad. And then turns out Lynette's paranoia served her right once again, because this whole meeting was a fucking setup. So Chrissy attacks Lynette, and then Chrissy's boyfriend finds Stephanie waiting in the car, and you bring her back to the house. So after having a standoff with Chrissy and creating a diversion, Lynette and Stephanie escape, unaliving Chrissy in the process. After holding up in a motel for the night, Lynette has this very heavy wave of guilt for unaliving Chrissy. Yes, she was a bad person, but at the end of the day, she still looked at her as one of her own because, like she said, there's not many of the final girls that they have to stick together, but she still felt bad for unaliving Chrissy, but she had to. So Lynette gets a hold of Sky, Dr. Carroll's son, and then Sky tells her that Dr. Carroll's taking the rest of the final girls up to Sage Fire. Sage Fire is the retreat that Adrian built on the camp that she survived in. And this is where Lynette tells Sky that his own mother is planning to off the rest of the final girls, and then he hang up because he don't know what to believe. And we finally hear from Julia again because she actually picks up the phone. Julia's been in the hospital this whole time because, you know, she was in the apartment when it got lit up. But she's been declining Lynette's calls this entire time, but she finally picks up, and Lynette's trying to warn her. But unfortunately, Dr. Carroll got to her first, and Julia ain't trying to hear all that shit. So Lynette's going through her things when she finds this comic book that she bought off of Dr. Carroll's younger son, Pax. And Lynette discovers through the drawings that Sky is the one behind all of this, not Dr. Carroll. Mike dropped another twist. Now this says to reach page 269 through 271, and I'm gonna read it. At the bottom of my go bag is War Ghost, Pax Elliott's homemade comic book. It feels like he hustled me out of $100 for it 2 months ago, not 7 days ago. I hope Julia does what I asked. I don't want to have to deal with those boys when I go see Dr. Carroll up at Sage Fire. We'll head for LA, I tell her. We can refill your prescription on the way. I flip through the comic book. The drawings are about what you'd expect. Amateurish and horrible. I can barely tell what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the page in the comic and I can't answer. An oversized figure with his mouth wide open, full of jagged teeth and X's for eyes, has sunk his talons into a lion and is ripping its head off. Red scribbles are everywhere. A wide open mouth is a sign of sexual abuse. Claws for hands represent possible violence, as does the oversized body in relation to the small child he looms over. Overuse of one color may be a sign of emotional imbalance, so are the X's for eyes, and the thing. But it's what's written on the monster's chest that takes my breath away. Sky. Skyman is so evil he tears the heads off cats. The caption reads, big cats, little cats, our cats, neighborhood cats. Skyman hates cats. My hands go numb. I page back with trembling fingers, reading from the beginning. Page after page features a monstrous Skyman looming over PX-1, a tiny robot who cowers from his rage. Skyman can shoot a gun real fast, the caption reads. I can shoot through a building from across the street. Skyman brags in a word balloon, holding a rifle with a scope. I kill all the last ladies. Skyman is burning down a building. Take that, Dream King. Skyman will kill the mean girls, the caption reads over a picture of Skyman chopping off the heads of 6 women. One is in a wheelchair, crayon blood fountains from their necks. 6 necks. There are 6 of them. 6 final girls. Skyman says that when he is finished, the caption reads, we will be the only people left in the world, and all the enemies will be deaded. Skyman will kill all of the enemies. Then mommy will come home again. Skyman. Sky Elliott. I think about Chrissy getting an email from Dr. Carroll's account. I remember standing in Sky's room and him saying, I set up all the email servers for my mom's business. Dr. Carroll's son, her home office, her computer, how he got my book, how he saw her notes, how he knew all about us, how he got us to do his work for him. The monster is coming from inside the house. I drop the comic into my bag. We need to go, I tell Stephanie. Grab your phone. Get your stuff, we need to get to LA. We'll call Julia on the way. We call her 14 times before we reach the state line. She doesn't pick up once. Now this truly shocked me because at this point I'm believing that, okay, we're in agreement that Dr. Carroll did this shit. It was her son. Should've saw it coming. Like he's an incel that lives at home with his mother still at 26. What did I expect? So the next chapter, and Lynette and Steph are speeding back to LA trying to save everyone. Lynette has this fire under her ass that she will end all of this and that Steph will be the last final girl. Like no more after Steph. She's sick of this shit. Being that there's 6 of them and she doesn't know who to go to first, she decides to go try and save Danny first. Now, I don't know how she found out, but Danny is now released. She's out of jail. And she's like, well, I know she'll be at home at her ranch, so that's where she ends up going. So they get to the ranch and they automatically know that something is wrong because the gate is wide open. Stuff is torn down, burning, all that stuff. So when they get up to like the actual house that's behind the ranch, Danny's still alive, but she is like burning all her stuff and getting rid of it. Out of anger, I guess, or you know, resentment, Danny attacks Lynette and Stephanie. And at this point, I'm thinking Dr. Carol got to her too. And Danny, like after she eases up off of them, she keeps adding stuff to the bonfire, getting rid of all her possessions. And she is grieving the loss of Michelle because like I said earlier, she wasn't there when Michelle passed, and that really tore her up. So after getting Danny to speak again, she tells Lynette that the others are going to Camp Red Lake. And Danny reluctantly agrees to go with them to try to save everybody else. So they get up to the lake, they're ready to fight and everything, right? And when Danny gets out to pee, another twist. Steph knocks Lynette in between the eyes. She tosses her at the truck, she runs her legs over, and then she runs Danny into a tree, pins her up against the tree with the truck. And here's my inner thoughts, right? So book is barely in my hands at this point, right? My jaw on the floor. She's slack. And my inner thoughts were like, so you mean to tell me Stephanie's been an op this whole time? It's been an op. We were worried about Dr. Carol and Chrissy and everybody else, but it was Stephanie the whole time. Stephanie been an op? And I'm thinking, like, during the time she'd been with Lynette, she became resentful of her. You know, she became resentful of how weak she truly is. She doesn't consider Lynette to be a final girl, I guess. Right when she's about to, you know, off Lynette, Steph notices that Danny is missing. Then he pop up and her and Steph are fighting. And then Danny escapes, disappearing again. And then after Danny escapes, guess what Steph does? She fucking shoots Lynette in the head and pieces out to go off everybody else at the camp. But hold on, baby, we still got a few more chapters of this left. Lynette is alive. She's simply just plain dead. So from all that trauma and stuff, and her being banged up so bad from the first trauma that she had with the Santa Claus killer, she had a metal plate put in her head because the damage was so bad. So Stephanie actually shot at that plate, but Lynette is still alive. She's just plain dead to buy herself some more time. I said, oh my God. And at this point in time, Lynette is feeling so defeated. She's kind of bleeding out on the ground. She's like, I am useless. I am worthless. There's nothing I can do. But then she gets some strength in her and she starts trudging her way up to the camp. Now in the next chapter, we see her going up the hill trying to stop Stephanie. And then it cuts back to a few minutes prior where she is visited by Adrian's ghost, telling her to get up and go fight. And when Lynette gets to the camp, she takes what we call the final girl route. This is where all of the characters have been off and she's making her way through that circuit, seeing all the carnage that was left behind. And somewhere along that route, she finds Julia, Danny, and some other survivors in the camp hiding in a camp cupboard. And then out of nowhere, here comes one of the killers and they're starting to close in on Lynette, Danny, and Julia. And then out of thin air, Heather and Marilyn appear to help because, you know, remember, Julia is in a wheelchair. Her legs don't work. So they're trying to get Julia to safety while also trying to keep, you know, an eye out for themselves. So they get into a cabin and they start to barricade themselves to protect everybody, and Lynette pushes a secret button somewhere in the cabin and it turns into like this military grade fortress or something, and she remembers that the button was there and that these cabins have these special features from when she visited the retreat back when Adrian was alive. And then there's this whole chase scene where Lynette is being chased by the shooter. He got a gun, he got a pew-pew. And at the last minute when all hope is lost, Heather saves her. Yes, Heather saves her, same bitch who sold her out to the cops. Then Steph shows up again out of nowhere, and then we get another reveal. These last few chapters just had hella reveals in them. I was like, how much more are you going to put us through? Come on now, Grady Day. And Steph reveals that she has been working with Sky this entire time. So that's how they were both connected to this. And this reveal is inspired by Scream 5, you know, the whole thing with Amber and Richie. I'm so sorry if you haven't seen Scream 5, but I just spoiled it for you. So there you go. Yeah, that whole reveal in this book is basically exactly what happened in Scream 5, just different names for the characters. That's it. And if you don't know about the reveal in Scream 5, basically Amber and Richie have been dating and they met each other on Reddit, but in this version of that, you know, they met on a Reddit board talking about Final Girls, and that's how they came together. They combine their hatred for the Final Girls, and they are involved romantically. I want to make it clear, Stephanie is a teenager. She's not 18, she's definitely under 18, and Sky is 26. I don't want none of that. So Lynette gets in her head to distract her a little bit, kind of give her a moment where she holds the mirror up to Stephanie and she attacks her. She takes her down. And now we're coming to a close right at the end of the book, and at the end we basically get a recap, an update on how everybody's doing, especially Lynette. We get some info on Lynette's recovery, Dr. Carroll's whereabouts. I think she kind of disappeared because she was embarrassed that her son was a part of all this. And it seems like all of the Final Girls forgive Lynette for, you know, what she wrote in that book. Especially Marilyn. They had this really sweet moment where they kind of see eye to eye. It was beautiful, really, truly. And Heather is nowhere to be found. She's probably out on another drug binge. You know, she's an addict, so she's probably out doing what she do. So all of the remaining Final Girls have gathered to visit Stephanie in her facility that she's currently being held in. And this time, they're starting group up again on their own terms, and they are introducing Stephanie. So they're keeping the cycle going. They're keeping that camaraderie and that safe space going, even though it was tampered with in the beginning. So yes, that is the entire plot, or the meat of it, of the Final Girl support group. And now I really want to talk about the messages in this book and a little bit of commentary. Now, the overall message or messages in this book, I do feel like they were being spoon-fed to me. I think I felt that way because this is written by a man, okay? Grady Hendrix is a man, or he is male presenting, and he's writing about women going through trauma, women coping, women healing. And so I feel like the reason why I felt like, you know, some of this stuff was spoon-fed to me is because I'm a woman. I already know what it's like to live in a society like this, or not as a Final Girl, but just to live as a woman, period. And I feel like he had to write that so on the nose because of men who might read this book. And that's why I feel like it was on the nose, because men are never gonna understand what it's like to be in a woman's shoes, okay? The overall topic of women and subtopics underneath that being sexism, misogyny, and hatred. Now, all three of these things coincide with one another in real life, but this book really delved into them each individually, and it also delved into how a woman experiences that on a day-to-day, but then add, you know, a widespread telling of her traumatic experience and her getting fame from that. It just kind of worsens. The women in this group have been stalked, tortured, almost unalived, and still men are finding a way to make it to be their fault. After all these women have been through, men have the nerve to say, "You're not special, okay, so what?" And like, they have the nerve, they have the gall to speak that way. And I just want to say, just because these characters are directly modeled after fictional characters, fictional Final Girls in horror movies, does not make their experience any less, you know, important. Men targeted them and had perverse thoughts about them, and they got off on that. Now, one thing I do think the author got right about this is, you know, hurt little boys who turn into incels finding something or someone to hate because it didn't work out for them. We see that all the time, and he hit the nail on the head with that, so good job, Grady. The next message I want to give some commentary on is the horror genre and how it was depicted in this book. This book really explored the reality of the horror genre being all take and no give, and I'm referring to the greed that comes along with this genre, you know, making pointless and countless sequels that nobody asked for. It also hits on the capitalism of the horror genre, you know, capitalizing off of these women's trauma and pain, even those who greenlit it and condoned it, just milking it for all it's worth. And then we see how a near-death experience or a traumatic experience can be shoehorned into bad horror tropes that live on forever in the genre. And we all know that those bad horror tropes rake in tons of money. And another piece of commentary I want to touch on is the imagery of healing from past trauma. Now, these characters dealt with it in their own way. I'll start with Lynette. I think Lynette was the only one that never truly healed or learned how to cope with what happened to her. She always lived in fear and slept with one eye open. And honestly, I don't blame her for that. I don't blame her for that. I probably would act the same way. I think Lynette chose to hold on to her past like that is because without those traits, she wouldn't have a purpose. She wouldn't know who she would be. Moving on to Marilyn, Marilyn took a different route. She decided to turn her trauma into gold, and she made a very cushy lifestyle for herself. But try as she might, she still has those moments from her past that creep up and haunt her every once in a while. Like, she seemingly got over it on the outside, but she still has those demons that she deals with on a day-to-day, you can tell. Now with Julia, Julia turned into a fighter. Her attacker took her legs, and she strengthened the only thing that she knew she had left, her intellect. She became sharp as a knife, that one, and that was where her strength lied, was, you know, within her brain. Heather, obviously Heather didn't cope well. She became a drug addict, but she did not turn down the chance to cash her check whenever the opportunity presented itself. Now, moving on to Danny, next to Adrian, I think she took the healthiest approach with dealing with her trauma. Very similarly to Adrian, she decided to take her trauma and flip it on its head and give back to people who need that help that she didn't get to have. The ranch that I was talking about, that was a place of refuge that Danny built, and that's how she coped with her darkness and her past. Adrian, rest in peace, she was the strongest one in my opinion. She literally took everything that she went through and looked on the bright side. The very place where she almost lost her life became a safe space for other girls and women who went through something similar. She created a place for them to let go and to heal. But yeah, that's my commentary or my thoughts on the book. So yeah. Now, here's my favorite part of Reading Rouge. We're doing the dream cast now. I noticed that in the past I kept saying fan cast, and I knew that didn't feel right. I was like, there's something, it's called something else. It's not a fan cast. I meant to say dream cast all those other times. From now on, it would be known as a dream cast, okay? Now, this is what I always say. If I can see the book playing out in my head like a movie, it would make an excellent movie. So I have chosen my dream cast. I've, you know, had a lineup. I had so much fun doing research and, you know, picking who would be best for these roles if they were to turn into a movie. And oh my gosh. But I want to say this before I start with my dream cast. I'm gonna keep it a buck. None, and I mean none, of these characters were likable. The only one that I really liked, she was killed off in the beginning. But everybody else, well, maybe Danny. Nah, I mean, no, yeah, the characters didn't do it for me. Now, I won't say they didn't have any redeeming qualities, but they didn't do it for me. Not even Lynette, because when I found out she was hiding shit from us, who she was supposed to be telling everything, the readers, I said, oh girl, please. Girl, don't even. But let's get into this dream cast, girl. So Lynette, our main character, the paranoid survivalist type chick, I would love to see Sandra Bullock take this role on. She's around that age that Lynette is depicted to be. I think she can play off that paranoid survivalist type of, you know, persona. I can see it. Now, this one, I did not realize what I did with this one, but for Adrian, I would put up Angelica Ross. Love you, queen. So, funnily enough, I forgot that Angelica Ross starred in American Horror Story in 1984, and that whole season basically is a parody or reimagining of like summer slashers and stuff, and she was a final girl in that show, in that season of the show, and I forgot. But to see her do another version of that role, specifically within this context of the book, Angelica, come on and give us Adrian. come on, just come on and do it for us, please. Now for Danny, I tried to like envision who would play this role best, and it was hard, you know? And Danny is a lesbian, as we learned in this book. Now, I don't know many lesbian actresses that would do this role justice. I'm pretty sure there are some out there, but I haven't. I'm just unaware. But I think Jennifer Robertson would be a good fit. I don't know if she's lesbian or even like bi. I don't think she's a lesbian, but her from Ginny and Georgia, I really do think she can bring that hardness. I've only seen her in Ginny and Georgia playing like the sweet suburban mom, but I want to see her get gritty and see what she does in this. If, you know, this were to be a movie, I would like to see Jennifer take on that role. Now for Heather, I really had to sit down and think. I'm like, who is gonna bring that to life? Like, who is gonna have that nonchalant, I don't give a fuck type of attitude, but also is very calculated at the same time? I think, me personally, I think Emmy Rossum would kill it as Heather. And no, this is not due to her character on Shameless. Okay, that's not that. I just think that she can embody Heather. But yeah, Emmy, go ahead and play Heather for us, girl. Thank you. So Julia, the one in the wheelchair. Now, I don't know of any actresses that are already, you know, in a wheelchair, and I make these dream casts based off of actresses and actors that I know quite a bit about. And I'm sure there are plenty of actresses that are in wheelchairs, and I'm sure that there are plenty of actresses that are like lesbian, but I don't know enough about them to know if they'll, you know, fulfill this role in the way that I imagine. So that's what I'm trying to say. But I chose to go with Sarah Paulson for Julia.
Talia, sweetie, let me stop you right there. You do know that Sarah Paulson is a whole entire lesbian. I said that with my whole chest, so bravely, forgetting that Sarah Paulson is a lesbian herself when I just casted someone who possibly isn't a lesbian for Danny's character. And I stand by what I said about saying, you know, I choose who I think would look good and fulfill the role. Now, after doing a little bit more research, I quickly gave myself a reminder of very talented and well-known lesbian actresses that I do have knowledge on. It just didn't click in my mind at that moment. I just went with who I think I would want to see in the role. And yeah, my bad on that part. So sorry, back to our regular scheduled programming.
Like I said before, she's like this know-it-all conspiracy theorist. I think Sarah Paulson can have that egghead, neurotic type of energy. So I think she would fit for this role. Now for Marilyn, I went with Lily Rabe. Yes, I'm kind of on a American Horror Story kick, but I only say that because she does a really good Southern accent. I don't know if she's actually Southern, but she does a really good Southern accent, and Marilyn is depicted to be blonde, and so slap some blonde on her and she'll be good to go, and give her a little Southern twang. She'll be alright. I know for a fact that she can embody that uppity, snobby, rich bitch that's too good, you know, her don't stink. Lily Rabe can definitely put that on the screen. And for Dr. Carol, I decided that Juliette Lewis would be an amazing fit. If you don't know, this lady that plays the mom in Nerve, also the mom in Ma, also the girl from Dusk Till Dawn. Yeah, I just think she can embody Dr. Carol. Now for Sky, I was thinking, what male actor gives incel, spoiled, entitled man baby? And I decided that Jace Norman would love especially like, you know, Jace Norman presently. Is that not giving Sky energy? Is it not giving? I think it is. I would put Jason Momoa in this role. Okay, and from what I've heard, it won't be too far of a stretch. And lastly, for Stephanie, I think that Ariana Greenblatt would do well. If you don't know, she was in Stuck in the Middle, and then also recently, she was in a lot of stuff recently. She was in some kind of Star Wars stuff, and she was in the Barbie movie. I haven't seen any of those things, but I hear she's very good. And she's a teenager right now, if I'm not mistaken, so it's not going to be hard for her. It's not going to be a stretch for her to like do that rebellious thing that teenagers do, kind of have like that, you know what I'm talking about? But yeah, Ariana Greenblatt, yeah. And that is my dream cast for the final girl support group if it ever were to be turned into a movie. Those are the only characters that I really resonated with and cared about, so that's all who I listed to be cast. But yeah. If I had to rate this book, I would give it I would give it a 9.6 out of 10. The author, Grady Hendrix, like I said before, he was really spoon feeding what it meant for a woman to go through these things. And I'm just like, this, I don't know what the demographic for this is, but I'm pretty sure a lot of women read this book. And trust me, you don't need to explain it to us. But other than that, very interesting and engaging story. So 9.6 out of 10 for the final girl support group. So that concludes our video for today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. And then if you made it to the end, what do I want you to comment? Comment a blood drop. Yeah. And subscribe if you want to. I'll see y'all on the next go round. Okay, bye.